Welcome to Change It Up Radio with Paula Shaw. It's actually Valentine's Day. You may be hearing this on another day, but today is Valentine's Day, and I wanted to record this show while we were actually immersed in the energy of love on this very special day that's all about honoring love. And to share this show with me is going to be one of the people I love most on the planet. And her name is McCarty. She is going to be joining us in just a few minutes, and we're going to be chatting about love. Just, kind of emoting, intuiting, chit-chatting, and just looking at love from a lot of different perspectives. So please stay with us because you're in for a real treat getting to meet McCarty. Alrighty, now let's officially begin. So those of you who follow us know that Change It Up Radio is all about helping people deal with change. I'm your host, Paula Shaw, and I am a life transition coach. So that's my work, helping people make change smoother and more productive. Because we humans, we have this love-hate relationship with change, as we say every week. We need it for growth and to keep us interested, but we hate the discomfort of the unfamiliar. So what I do in my work is help people to find the blessing in change, find that gem, that seed, that kernel of something new that can grow or make life more beautiful. I am also an author, and I have written 3 books which I have with me today. The first book I ever wrote was called Chakras, the Magnificent Seven. And this is a book that's all about helping you balance those 7 energy centers in the body that are known as the chakras. I also wrote a book that's actually it's called Grief. When will this pain ever end? But it takes a look at grief through the lens of the chakra system. And it also is filled with processes, articles, and different methods that can help you move through your grief and not get stuck in it. It's not a book you have to read from cover to cover. It's one you can almost open and see what pops up for you to do that day. And then finally, my most recent book, Saying the Right Thing When You Don't Know What to Say. And I have to say, this little book is really kind of one of my faves because it was born out of 28 years of my being in practice, and time after time after time hearing people say, no one brought it up, no one showed up, no one talked to me about my loss. And I realized that the reason that was happening was because people just didn't know what to say. They felt so awkward, they felt so uncomfortable, and they didn't want to make it worse. So that little book, Saying the Right Thing When You Don't Know What to Say, is a gem. It actually gives you the statements, the questions, the things you can say that are helpful, and equally important, the things you should avoid saying because they're not helpful. And speaking of that, if you go to my website, paulashaw.com, you can grab my free gift, which is a little ebook called 20 Things to Say and Not to Say to People in Emotional Pain. So that's just kind of a great cheat sheet you can keep with you, and the glove box in your purse or wherever is a handy place. And also on paulashaw.com, you can book a complimentary 20-minute consult with me. If there are things that you're concerned about right now, or if you're considering doing work on some kind of a life transition you're having an issue with. So all of that is on paulashaw.com. And if you want to learn more about this radio show, actually, this podcast, it began as a radio show, many of you know. But if you want to learn more about it, or if you're interested in being a guest or a sponsor of this show, you can get that information on changeitupradio.com. That's changeitupradio.com. All righty. I am very excited for what's coming up right now, and I'm going to put my eyes on because I want to tell you just a little bit about Ellen McCarty. Because this day, Valentine's Day, most people think of it just in terms of romantic love. But I like to think that Valentine's Day is important because it's really a day that we all just kind of focus our energy to some degree on this concept of love, this experience of love. And I really believe this day isn't just about romantic love. It's about love of family, love of friends, love of self, and of course, romantic love. But love itself is this huge concept. It's this huge, amazing piece of life. It's kind of the magic of life, isn't it? And I'm so excited to have this conversation with Ellen McCarty because she has been both my friend and my life coach for many years. And I am just over the moon with excitement about introducing her to you. She was born and raised in Massachusetts. She's one of 9 children. My dad was also one of 9 children. That's funny. Her early career was spent in teaching hospitals, primarily running clinical, surgical, and medical cancer programs for Tufts, Harvard, and Brown universities. During those 13 plus years, she would spend time visiting with hundreds of terminal patients and their families and discovering what we humans really value in the end. The second half of her life brought her to San Diego, where she's been a business and marketing strategist by trade for more than 2 decades. She's been a one-on-one coach for thousands of entrepreneurs all over the world. Her skill, expertise, and experience in all of this, she found herself more interested in why people were failing to achieve their desires, what was in their way, and how she could help them allow and receive the success, sustainability, and expansion they desired. For the last 7 years, she's worked with private clients, and I am delighted to be one of them, helping them to identify and release their resistance, transform their disempowering beliefs, reconnect with their authentic self, and manifest both business and personal fulfillment. A quote from this great lady is, "I want to really help others to live a great life, even when life is lifing." Suffer less, enjoy more. So without any further ado, let's meet Ellen McCarty. Hey, Ellen.
Hi, Paula.
Hello, darling.
How
So
are
good to
you?
see you.
I'm coming to you from the heart of my home
I
on
see that.
Valentine's Day.
I know. Are we going to bake today? Or
We might, actually, we might be baking.
I know. I feel like we're on one of those shows where I should join you by your side right now and we should make a love cake, a Valentine cake or something.
It's so good to see you.
You too, my darling friend. You
Mm,
too. So you heard what I was saying about this concept of love,
mm,
this thing that's sort of like we can't live We can't live with it. We can't live without it.
Uh,
Some days we think it's our worst enemy, and other days, excuse me, it's the greatest blessing of all, right? So, love. I One of the things I was thinking we might kind of start off discussing, Ellen, is what do we need in order for love to work? What
mm,
needs to be present for love to grow, for love to really be able to expand into all it can be? And one of the first things that occurred to me was safety. How do you
mm,
feel about that?
mm. I think that that is really what a lot of people are accessing right now is, the feeling of how can I trust,
Mm-hmm.
right? How can I really allow? And
Yes.
I really believe that everything's an inside job. Everything's an
Yes.
inside job. And it really starts with self-love. Like that's the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yes.
and because when you truly love yourself, you can love others even better, right? So we
Mm-hmm.
hear that everywhere. But what seems to be unlocking these days in my world is that it feels something like, it's not just self love, it's unconditional self love first. And that's
Mm-hmm.
the piece. Who are we trusting? Why
Uh-huh.
do we feel unsafe?
Mm-hmm.
We just need to go in, right? So appreciating who we are in those moments and knowing that that's not the wholeness of who we are when we're in fear,
Mm-hmm.
and just
Yeah.
loving ourselves and being generous about that. Really unconditional love for self. And everything comes out of that.
I really, really adore the fact that you said unconditional love for self because we hear unconditional love all the time. And of course, it's a beautiful goal to strive for. It's very hard to love another human unconditionally. And I'm also going to say it's no easy feat to love yourself unconditionally because I think humans are so much better at self criticism than they are at self love.
Well, I agree with you there. We've been taught very well. We all have our histories, our religions, our upbringings,
Mm-hmm.
this just these disempowering beliefs that we've lived with all
Mm-hmm.
along. But
Mm-hmm.
I think, Paula, the real key is, and the fun thing is, to first find unconditional love of self. And what that feels like is us being so much gentler with ourselves,
Oh, yes.
pivoting those things that we say automatically that get triggered in us
Mm-hmm.
that are self-deprecating and even
Mm-hmm.
worse, really ugly things when you listen in.
Yes.
Um, and we don't think of them that way. But I think we really have to get to our inner child about this and just say we would never speak to a
Yeah.
7-year-old child
Mm.
and say, "You idiot, why are
Right.
you just so lazy? You blew it again." You wouldn't say those
Yes.
things.
Yes, that's so true.
You would
So
say
true.
really beautiful things, and we need to start saying them to ourselves. And I think that's how we get to unconditional love. We say, it's okay, that went that way. It's so interesting that I'm aware enough to notice
Mm-hmm.
that that didn't feel good and
Mm-hmm.
that I don't have to repeat that. Or I can, use that as an example of how to shift and be, and that even that process is being gentler with yourself, right?
Mm-hmm. I love how you always use how you feel as sort of the
Mm.
guiding light of whether or not you're on the right path. And you brought that in just now with this. So if you are criticizing yourself or, giving yourself a hard time because you didn't do it perfectly or you didn't do it right, it I think it's important to remember tune into that even as you're doing it. How does it feel? And if it doesn't feel good, might be a good idea to do something else, right?
Yeah, yeah. And I say hit the pause button because when we don't
Mm-hmm.
feel good like that and it happens, if we're talking about like a circumstance that didn't go well,
Mm-hmm.
or an upset, right? Which could be something as simple as an unfulfilled expectation, whatever that is, and you
Mm-hmm.
feel the initial upset. If I can recognize I'm upset, that's the time to hit the pause button, because then I can take the time to care for myself. I
Yes.
can say, this doesn't feel good. And the only reason it doesn't feel good is because it's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
It's not my essence. It's not my source. Something was in discord, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something. And so that doesn't feel good. So that's the
Right.
first message that I'll take is, oh, thank you for making me aware,
Yeah.
in the moment. And then really understanding that that's really all it has to be. We want to make up stories about it. We want to understand it. Oh, why did that feel so bad? And
Mm-hmm.
that's good sometimes, but I really want to invite people to sort of take a bigger leap with that and say, just the knowingness, just that you were present enough to get the message that it doesn't feel good,
Mm-hmm.
and that you can now have choice to choose to turn your attention to something that does,
Ah.
is the gift.
Yes.
It doesn't matter how it came. The universe is, orchestrating all these different experiences for
Right.
us.
Boy, that could short circuit a lot of therapy, what you just said there. We don't need to spend years knowing why or where it came from, because it only takes moments to know it doesn't feel good.
Yes.
And if that's all the justification you need to shift it, wow, you can move through things much more quickly.
Much more quickly, much more
Yeah.
quickly. And the
Yeah.
momentum speeds up too, of all the worse it gets, the worse it gets, the better it gets, the better it gets. So, that, Paula, the momentum has been really flowing with you.
Yes. Yes.
Really beautiful. Beautiful
Absolutely.
on you.
Speaking of what's been flowing with me, I spent the weekend with my parents because they're at a point in life now where they can't drive anymore. And so they weren't going to be able to go anywhere, do anything special for the Super Bowl game, which we just had, and LA won, which was exciting. It was over the moon. And then my sister was able to get there on a transportation service. So the four of us just immersed ourselves in the joy of hanging out together,
Ah,
watching this beautiful
yeah.
football game unfold. And that's where some of the things that occurred to me about what makes love great, what makes love work. So, some of the things that I realized I experienced over the weekend was certainly the safety of being with people that know me so well, truth, being able to just tell your truth and be authentic, just be who you are. Well, that's huge, isn't it? That
Yes.
is huge.
That's who I am. That's who I be for my clients and the
Mm-hmm.
people in my life, for everybody in my life is. And yeah, this is like the Tony Robbins. I'm not saying this to impress you, but impress upon you that I feel it's really vital. We all need a place to be able to just dump, or just and not be judged, and not like somebody just sort of putting judgment aside for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Literally have zero attachment to it. It's
Yeah.
your life, come emote. And it's you have such a beautiful family. I love everybody in your family.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody, just I knew you were doing this, and I had such joy. I shot you that text because I'm
Yeah.
just imagining just so much love and affinity and celebration and
Mm-hmm.
laughing and eating and
Mm-hmm.
just loving and
Exactly.
being who you are.
Yeah.
And to that end, I think that the key because earlier you said something that kind of has stuck with me here that I want to look at a little bit more, that it's
Sure.
so hard to unconditionally love another,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so that has to do with we're not aligned with source purely, because when what they do bothers us,
Mm-hmm.
we're over there on the ragged edge of it, right?
Right.
But when we're really grounded and we know all is well, your behavior matters not to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
Interesting.
you doing you
Mm-hmm.
and me observing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
being there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's kind of nice to get yourself in alignment where you really don't have to care how other people are being. In other
Yeah.
words, you can see who they really are, even when they're having a hard time.
Yeah. I love that, Ellen.
I
Actually,
like that too.
yeah, makes such a huge difference. And it is so true. I think we're much better at doing it with our children. Like
Mm-hmm.
when they're having a tantrum, doesn't cross your mind you don't love them. You may not like the behavior, but you're still loving your child,
Yeah, that's a great example.
you know? And I think that you're right. And the reason you're still loving them is because you're grounded in the truth that you're their parent, that
Mm-hmm.
this is what children do, doesn't make them any less lovable, doesn't mean you did something wrong. But I think as we are dealing with older and older human beings, even our own teenagers, we
Mm-hmm.
can get triggered more
Oh, yeah.
because now this looks like an adult. And if they're acting like this and it's making me this unhappy now,
Mm-hmm.
I must have screwed up. So ego comes in, right? The ego and the self doubt comes in. And that's what tends to start making us get upset and
Yeah.
not love them unconditionally because they're not making me feel good.
And the ego and the self doubt are the things, the stories, those things that just trigger for us, right?
Yes,
If we can hit the pause button when we're feeling that,
right.
we can really unpack what that is very easily. Just see,
Mm-hmm.
this doesn't feel good. Here's where I want to be in harmony, and I'm not in
Yeah.
harmony. And so, whew, let's hit the pause button and take another swipe at this in a minute or two. I mean, it's like really like that. And
Yeah.
all of our opportunity to transform what life feels like is in the
Mm-hmm.
present,
Mm-hmm.
you know? But how about being okay with, like, being responsible for our feelings?
Right.
Like, they're upsetting me. That's, that's not their responsibility to behave in a way that makes me feel good,
Exactly. Exactly.
you know?
We create it. It's all, like you said, it's an inside job. It's all coming from within us.
So self-love and
Yes.
reaching for unconditional self-love,
Mm-hmm.
which I think the access to that is the just being really generous with yourself,
Mm.
right? Really
Yes.
soothing yourself like you're the 7-year-old child that you would never say that to.
True, because you know what? That's such a great point. Because when you're taking care of yourself, you're probably less frazzled, you're more rested, you're healthier, you're in better shape. So what goes on around you impacts you less. You're grounded. You're okay.
That's absolutely right. And that's how we can help everyone that we come in contact with, is by taking care of ourselves. That's a
Mm-hmm.
perfect example
Yes.
because, you're a healer.
Mm-hmm.
We're healers. We're in that same tribe somehow, right?
Yes.
We have our own roles, which I love, and I've loved being alongside of you all these years as a
Mm-hmm.
friend and a client, and
Mm-hmm.
all of it, Paula. It's been so fun, and so we sort of have a responsibility too. I think as healers, we know that if we're here to shine a light and heal, the nature of being a healer is to keep reaching, right?
Right.
Really, you want to heal as many as you can heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so as that expansion, which is what we're here for, right? It's so exciting,
Absolutely.
expansion and growth.
Absolutely.
As that expands, we have to drink more water, like literally simple things. Get your rest, right? Take care of your body,
Mm-hmm.
exercise. Yeah, yeah. And all of that is it feels different from this perspective because it feels like, oh, you mean like literally that's my job,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Take care of
good.
myself so I can take care of others. Yes,
Yeah,
okay.
I know.
Let's
Yahoo.
stop, Paula.
Ellen, we're going to have to take a quick break, but when we
Yeah.
come back, I want to talk about communication, fun, passion, the a balance in giving and receiving, because all of those feel like pretty important elements to love going well to
Mm,
me also. So
that sounds great.
let's take this quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Change It Up Radio. I'm your host, Paula Shaw, and I am here with Ellen McCarty, who is a life and business coach and actually probably just one of the greatest humans walking around on the planet, as far as I'm concerned. And it's Valentine's Day, and we're talking about love. So if you missed the beginning of this show, please listen to it after you're done with the part you're hearing now, because Ellen has shared some real pearls with us about love, like what it is and how do we make it last and how do we make it easier? I think so much of what you've said, Ellen, is really a recipe for how love can be easy.
Mm,
And sometimes we make it so hard. And it occurs to me that usually when it's hard, we're not in a state of acceptance of
mm.
who the other person is. Does that feel right to you?
Well, yes, and that's just an indication that you're not aligned with source because that's not who you naturally are.
Mm.
So, when you're really grounded is another way to say it, right? When you're
Mm-hmm.
really grounded, you you said this earlier. You have it doesn't bother you. You have the capacity to, make a difference and say, "I'm so sorry you feel that way," instead
Mm-hmm.
of getting
Yeah.
triggered and going in your own world, right?
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, I think it's like that. And
You said, too, the more we're loving ourselves and nurturing ourselves and taking care of ourselves, the more grounded and solid we are. So we're not as reactive to things people do or say,
right.
right?
So, and what you're referring to when we have difficulty being with a loved one and what they're
Mm-hmm.
doing is conditional love.
Yeah,
It's based on I want you to behave so that I feel good around you.
that's right. Exactly.
And that's a condition that my favorite people in the world would never stand for.
Mm-hmm.
You know, They'd
Yeah.
be like, don't think so. I'm going to go over here for a little while because I
Mm-hmm.
know who you are when you're not being like this. I love you. And I'm not going to come and play on this ragged edge that you're on, right?
Mm.
I'm going to go over here and I'm going to keep feeling the energy of who I know you to be. And we can connect when, we're
Yeah.
more in alignment with that. Or you find that gentle place where you just are like, I'm so sorry you're going through that,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
like we said, really being listened to without judgment,
Yes.
huge,
Yes.
huge.
And what you're describing right now is that big piece of communication, I think, to be able not only to speak your truth kindly, but to be able to hear what somebody else is saying and doing without judgment.
Yeah.
That's really a huge piece of it that never occurred to me in quite that way before, but just in the communication you were using as an example, that was so without judgment. Where when you think about that, I need you to behave in a way so that I can feel good. Whoa, that is full of judgment. It's full of demand. It's full of denial of the other person's reality in the moment, right?
And yes, and it becomes all so easy when you're speaking your truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this. My friend Larry Finney, his magnificent partner Denise Kirby, taught him this little thing: say what you mean what you say, and don't say it mean.
Oh, I like that.
Which I do like, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
lovely. And the point is that you can ask for what you need.
Mm-hmm.
for what you truly need to be there for them. You know? So you can say, I'm really sort of in my head right now. I don't want to have this conversation.
Yes.
I really want to give it, because this is why I really want to give it my full attention.
Yeah.
And I want to be in a space where I can love and care for you in that moment. I can tell this is really big. Okay?
Yeah.
I'm just going to need a few minutes to transition before we have that conversation.
Wow, that's huge. And I remember something I learned years ago, and I'll tell you, it was a game changer in my marriage. Where sometimes, especially when people are upset, they think they can just burst right in on another person, whatever they're doing, and just
Uh,
start spewing. But I learned to say, I have something I need to talk about. Is this a good time? And just that saying, is this a good time? A is more respectful, makes the person feel respected. It allows them to actually let you know if it isn't. Because if I tried that and my husband was in the middle of a critical moment of the football game, he it was definitely not a good time.
that's funny.
And if I would have spewed, I would have just gotten angrier and more upset because he wasn't going to
You
hear
wouldn't be
me
connecting with it,
because he
right?
was focused on what he
So
was
even being
important.
awareness, having the awareness of what we're talking about right now, Paula,
Mm-hmm.
in and of itself is so valuable.
Yeah.
Just in and of itself, because what it means is that in the present, you can hit a pause button if you need to, but you get better
Mm-hmm.
at it. But
Yes.
in the present, you can say, geez, now's not a good time for me to talk,
Yeah.
Or you can say, I know my husband had a bad day and he's coming in the door and I'm going to be ready. I'm
Yeah.
going to get myself prepared.
Mm-hmm.
Choice. You get to do you, right? But you
Mm-hmm.
get choice.
Mm.
You get new choices that change the way that you feel, how you can show up.
Yep.
Ease and grace, love
Mm-hmm.
and affinity, all of it lives in that juice.
Right. It
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
I had mentioned earlier about spending the weekend with my parents and my sister. And one of the things that also occurs to me that was such a component of that loving experience
Mm.
was fun and humor. Oh my God, we laughed and we laughed and we laughed.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how that shifts your energy so
Mm.
quickly, to laugh.
The best medicine. And, I've used it. Have you ever
Mm-hmm.
like burst out and you just can't stop? It's like,
Yeah.
this is like, in your stomach and your cheeks hurt. And, you're like, oh my God, please stop, please stop, please stop. And it's
Yeah.
that kind of laughing.
Tears
I can
running
get
down your
myself
face.
doing that just by watching something, a clip on the internet. If
Mm-hmm.
I find something that makes me laugh like that, I just stay there. It's like laugh
Yes.
therapy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
But the
like,
interaction between family, it's so familiar. I come from a
exactly.
big family, and they're all back east except for one.
Mm-hmm.
And we just loved the communication and the inside jokes and the quick wit.
Yes.
Your family is like that.
Well, that shared history is
Yes.
so great.
Yeah.
That's just an important base for a loving relationship, too, I think. The shared history, whether you told your new partner about your history or whether it's family who you've grown up with,
Yeah.
sharing that history of who you are, where you've been, what you've experienced, it is such a bonding thing. It's really a huge piece as well. And
Yeah,
I,
so I have a little slice on that, if I
yeah,
may.
go.
I don't know how we're doing on time, but
No, we're fine.
because one of the things that I really believe is that in a partnership, in a life partnership,
Mm-hmm.
that at this point, personally, it's really I'm in expansion, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in expansion, in growth. Um, sort of soaring with this particular energy. And the only way I would be talking about the past, even with my partner,
Mm-hmm.
would be in how it has informed me in the present and
Mm-hmm.
gifted me this future, right?
Yeah. Yeah,
Like
that's
not kind
great.
of talking through like, oh, this happened and I was, bummed out and that kind of
Right.
stuff.
Right.
And I think some of the indicators that you're nicely matched is when you're sort of saying things that are similar. And you're saying the
Mm-hmm.
same things in your different worlds,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
I think that's such an important point that you just brought up because I think sometimes people feel like they have to take the new partner through all their past pain so the new person will get who they are. And our past pain isn't who we are. It's what we've experienced perhaps, but it isn't necessarily how we want to lead in a new situation. If we are fortunate enough to be in a situation that feels good
Yeah.
and that is new, then I think that's a great point. Just be there, be present in that moment. Don't be dragging all the old baggage
Right.
from the
There'll be a
past in.
discovery as you go, like,
Yeah.
why do you talk like that? Oh, I did the
Mm-hmm.
8-year program, like it comes up as you go. But
Right.
yeah.
Right. And I was thinking other components of a great loving relationship, all these pieces that we've been discussing all interweave so beautifully.
Mhm.
And since it is Valentine's Day, and there are many people who are celebrating romantic love on this day, uh, I also was thinking about passion and the role passion plays.
Mm.
And obviously, we all think of passion in terms of uh, physical relationship or sex, but passion in a loving relationship, like, you can be passionate about your work. You can be passionate about your friend's growth or something cool that just happened to them. Passion's really a gift. It's sort of like a gift from the gods, isn't it?
It is. I love passion, and there's so many things you're right to be passionate about. I'm so passionate about my friendship with my friend Kathleen, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm so passionate and I'm so grateful that I can provide what's needed at this time,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
in her life. And
Mm-hmm.
it feels so fulfilling. It doesn't feel
Yes.
like a burden or any stress at all. It's just
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling and it's
Mm-hmm.
very, very joyful. And I'm very passionate about it. I mean,
Yeah.
she has a medical situation going on and those doctors are calling me now.
Yeah.
I'm like, listen up,
Mm.
and that's a passion and that's a passion of love too. I mean, that's,
Yes.
it's all from love. So I do know I really love what I do. I really love the work that I do in this world. I
Mm-hmm.
really, really, you couldn't stop me from doing it, if you
Yes.
tried. It's who I be, and I have a great deal of passion for that. And every single conversation gives me something,
Yes.
for myself, huge.
Mm-hmm.
Going through it together, it's really
Mm-hmm.
expanding. Yeah, it's
And
nice.
when you're working with others, I think, because I too am blessed to feel like you. I love what I do. I love doing this show. I love the opportunity to bring people like you to others. I love the opportunity to educate. I think in my gut and heart, I'm an educator. That's,
Mm,
what I've always been.
great.
And, but when you get to work with people that you have common values with, common beliefs. It's such a joy, isn't it?
Yes, yes. It's and I keep saying expansion, expansion. I mean, I sit
Mm.
around the house like this with my arms open, like, I
Yes,
can take it more,
yes.
more, more. And yeah, and in that sort of flow lives the right fits,
Mm-hmm.
in business, in
Yeah,
self-expression, in connections,
yes.
in, oh, it's beautiful. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
what
it's really nice.
just occurred to me earlier, I mentioned something about a balance in give and take in a relationship. But
Hmm.
what I have recently kind of really gotten in touch with? When the relationship is truly loving and giving, then there isn't a tit for tat kind of a thing.
There's no
Like,
need to balance it.
yeah, like this weekend, I put together all the snacks and everything for the party, and and my parents and my sister kept saying, "Oh, thank you so much. You did all this work." And it never felt like work. It was total joy the whole time. I didn't feel in any way put upon. It was such a joy to be giving them an experience they would not have had.
So that's pure. That's unconditional
Mm,
love. That was
mm,
something that you had no agenda behind it. So what we do in partnership, I think a lot of time is we do have the balance sheets going, right? And we haven't clued them
yes,
in on it. We haven't told them that this weighs this much for that much that you just did, right? We're
yes.
calculating all these things and we haven't even communicated it and we make them wrong for it.
Right.
And that becomes the separation, right?
Mm,
And
so true.
once again, through self love, it all comes through because through self love, Paula, you just experienced it. Unconditional self love,
Mm,
that event that you put together was pure spirit magic, all of it. Okay?
mm.
It is not what typically happens, and I've been with you through a lot of Super Bowls,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
I know, and there was no trying to cause this. It was something that
Mhm.
called you forth,
Yeah.
right? It was like, oh, I could do this, and oh my God, and then it was like this, and
Yes.
that's being in the flow. So
Yes.
none of that felt like effort, and you would never tally that. It was
Mm-mm.
so fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah.
Ellen, that was so beautifully said. And I was going to say that one of the other pieces of a relationship or of a loving relationship, I think that's so important is commitment. But I think when a lot of what you've been describing, and when you, maybe the first commitment has to be to the self care. I'm kind of feeling like we're coming full circle here to it all has to begin with self, loving self, caring for self, committing to self. When all of that is in alignment, it feels like the rest can just blossom.
And I would add the word unconditional self love because
Mm,
we have conditions inside that taking care of ourselves.
that's
I'm only
true.
going to do this for 30 minutes because I didn't do enough on my project,
Yes.
right? So this is not about that. This is
Mm-hmm.
about really like tuning in. What do I need? And
Mm-hmm.
if I need something, really allowing yourself to have it. Um, and it's usually something really simple and it moves your whole day. Oh
Yes.
gosh, a 10-minute nap would
Ah,
right my world right now.
yeah.
Drinking more water. My gosh, I'm sitting here parched. What am I doing? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Getting present and taking care of your well-being in the moment.
Yes.
And then you're cued in to go for your walk or, right? We can
Yes.
keep doing this. Yeah, this is where it all lives in the present. It's really cool.
Huge,
Yeah.
huge.
But not in unconditional love too, not bringing those conditions. And part of that is being generous with yourself, be loving with yourself
Mm,
first.
mm-hmm.
Everything's okay. This is only a moment in time. It's only a
That's
moment
right.
in time.
That's right.
And it's going to turn out and I'm here for you and let's just sit for a moment.
Mm.
We'll go
Oh, I
much
love that.
further.
Mm. And one of the things I have to say about you, Ellen, is that I've known you long enough and seen you through some heavy duty stuff to
Yes.
know that you don't just speak words. You live this truth. You are
Mm.
everything you're saying here. And that's what has incredibly impressed me and made me feel kind of in awe and honored to know you and to be in your presence over these years. You are what you speak. You are that real deal.
It feels wonderful to be putting it out in the world. You asked me to be on this podcast like 3 times in the past
I know.
2 years,
I
and
know.
I kept saying, no, not quite, not quite, not quite,
Uh-huh.
and I really do feel like I am being me, and it feels like such a relief. And there's so much ease and grace that's come in. And
Mm-hmm.
Paula, the reason, and thank you. I really get the acknowledgement, and I love you so much. And I reflect back to you that, in a tribe, I've said this to you before, the medicine man would never try to do the warrior's
Mm-hmm.
job,
Mm-hmm.
right? And vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we need each other, right? Those are these other parts of, and for
Yes.
you, I feel like well, you're always in expansion. So you can't see me unless you are on your way and this is something that you're looking to expand through,
Mm.
right? Like
Oh, I
I
love
wouldn't
that.
be seeing
Yes.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, Ellen, I have to share you with the world. If any of the listeners are going, oh my goodness, this is the woman I've been looking for, who I'd love to work with, who I'd love to talk to, how can people reach you?
They can send me a text on my phone. And then
Okay.
we will set a time and just jump on the phone and see if there's a reason for us to be together. And usually, if we get that far, there is. And so I'll give them my phone number, which is 760-805-4070. Again, 760-805-4070. And I will enjoy meeting them.
Wow, that's incredible. And that in itself is pretty rare these days. Most people do not give their phone numbers. And I know that you actually do look forward to that and you will have those talks with them.
Yeah.
And I just thank you so much for this time today, Ellen. Is there anything in conclusion that you would like to say about love that we haven't touched on yet?
I would just like to reiterate that I believe it's self-love first, because that's what we can access. We can understand that and start working towards that.
Hmm.
And another higher reach is unconditional self-love. So self-love is very important, but if you can get to that unconditional, like just being generous with yourself and just
Hmm.
watch the shift, if you can visit that daily and be gentle with yourself, it's going to be huge.
Beautiful.
That's the access.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Paula.
Thank you for blessing us with your presence
Oh,
today, Ellen.
thank you for
Uh,
asking me to share this day of love with you. I love
uh,
you so much.
my pleasure, totally.
Okay.
And thank you, and I love you to my listeners. And you know that you can hear us on every major podcast platform, including iHeartRadio. And please be sure, if you've gotten value out of this show today, share it. Share it, subscribe, like us. You know the drill, do all that stuff so we can share the love and keep it all going. All right, and we will see you next week with another wonderful show on Change It Up Radio.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now. Take care.